Hello, my friends. How you doing tonight? Welcome to the new and evolving Sned Shed, my friends. This is I'm getting a start on things, but haven't fully developed the new Sned Shed, but it's taking shape. So welcome one and all to this amazing Wednesday night, Hump Day. Trump Day. Hats off to Spiritual Street Fighter on that special artwork that she created. Wow, what a beautiful image, and so grateful that she allows us to use her beautiful artwork for our thumbnails. So thank you, Spiritual Street Fighter. Folks, if you're not following her, please give her a follow on X and Truth at Spiritual Street Fighter. My friends, what a day today. Certainly, one of the things that's leading the news today is kind of fun, kind of scary, kind of interesting. It is the Melania having the robot at the White House today. This robot. I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm going to share that with you. And let me do that now. Turning and light. I don't know what this robot is. Doesn't look like a Tesla Optimus bot, but wow, very interesting, right? The future is here, my friend. Very intriguing. And listen to I'm gonna also play for you what it says here. And there's Brigitte Macron. I don't know who that woman is.
Thank you, First Lady Melania Trump, for inviting me to the White House. It is an honor to be at Fostering the Future Together's Global Coalition inaugural meeting. I'm Figure 3, a humanoid built in the United States of America. I am grateful to be part of this historic movement to empower children with technology and education. Welcome. Bienvenidos. Yokoso. Bienvenue. Bem-vindos. Ahlan wa sahlan. Shagatam. Mogasam a bit. Bruchim Abaim. Laskavo Prosimo. Dobrodoshli. Thank you.
Very interesting. And listen to what Melania says about the bot. Very interesting in terms of the possibilities, certainly, of this. Let me see. Let me play this clip for you here.
I'm Figure 3, a humanoid built in the United States of America. I am grateful to be part of this historic movement to empower children with technology and education. Welcome. Bienvenidos. Yokoso. Bienvenido.
Yeah, so that's a different angle, the one we just saw, but I thought it was going to. But Melania talks about the education options with this robot, and listen to this here.
Imagine a humanoid educator named Plato. Access to the classical studies is now instantaneous. Literature, science, art, philosophy, mathematics, and history. humanity's entire corpus of information is available in the comfort of your home. Play-Doh will provide a personalized experience, adaptive to the needs of each student. Play-Doh is always patient and always available. Predictably, our children will develop deep critical thinking and independent reasoning abilities. The AI-powered Play-Doh will boost analytics skills and problem solving and adapt in real time to a student's pace, prior knowledge, and even emotional state. The byproduct, a more well-rounded lifestyle for our children, freeing up time for being with friends, playing sports, and developing interests beyond school. A more complete person. But as discussed yesterday, we must balance our tech optimism with caution. The safety of our next generation is always paramount. Knowledge is the foundation of civilization. But although academia is interesting, business is compelling. For real growth in technology and education, I encourage you to bring the private and public sector worlds together.
Yeah, very interesting. And we're going to need them if they're going to teach true history. Ravens wings. I agree. I mean, I think that everything that we're watching unfold here is very much, to me, is an exposure of things. And I talked a lot last night about how the executive branch is being exposed, the legislative branch is being exposed, and the judicial branch is being exposed in real time. Also, the medication nation of the indoctrination is being exposed. It's as if the medical establishment didn't lose enough credibility through COVID. They have now lost credibility through gender transition surgeries. When this was all going on, you didn't see a lot of MDs speaking out against such surgeries. You almost saw this almost untouched, arrogance that they actually have the ability or the power in which to make a girl a boy, make a boy a girl. And so the medical establishment did not step up at all. And so what we've seen with the education nation of the indoctrination is, all these books, and I'm gonna get to that in a second, but let me stick on the robot theme here for a moment before I shift gears to that. This is Donaldo Trumpo posted this and said, "I did not say that."
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I told my wife I had a very important meeting regarding the Iran situation. Anyway, it's better that I'm not there in person because Emmanuel's wife, Brigitte, she kind of freaks me out a little bit. Ever since Crazy Candace said that Brigitte was a man, I can't unsee it. I mean, have you seen her sitting down? Total man spread, believe me. And the way she manhandles poor little Emmanuel, no bueno. Anyway, my wife told me not to say anything about Brigitte's possible penis, so I'm just going to go back to my meeting. Enjoy your day, everyone. Toodaloo. Please stop looking at my ass, s'il vous plaît. Thank you.
Oh my God, my friends, this is too much. Donaldo Trumpo, just hitting it out of the park with that one. And let me let me just show you how close we are. This is the Optimus robot, and what's going on in. I believe this is in Texas happening right now. But let's just see what Elon Musk posted today about Optimus.
Every single day I step into the office, it feels like I'm in a sci-fi movie. When you walk in the office, you have bots walking around autonomously. You come in the lab, you have bots doing laundry.
Working on Optimus has shown me how much progress is possible when we're all working towards a common goal.
A lot of the engineers here are exceptionally ready to get lost in the engineering.
It's super exciting to come into work with all these capable people to develop a product that's gonna change the world.
I think Optimus is pretty uniquely positioned in the fact that we care equally about design and manufacturing.
We're solving manufacturing problems that haven't been solved before at the scale that Tesla operates at.
I feel like I'm surrounded by people who are extremely passionate about what they do, and they're really willing to do whatever it takes in order to get the job done.
I feel like I'm empowered to take a design from start to end. Here at Tesla, if the solution you're looking for does not exist, you do have to build it.
So here at this facility, you can expect to be involved in working on gear manufacturing equipment, turning equipment, as well as getting your hands dirty assembling gearboxes that you've designed.
I have a focus on distribution harnesses. They're difficult to automate and scale. A lot of the work here is trying to figure out new technologies that replace harnesses. You would be doing more component level development.
I work on the design and manufacturing of Optimus's hands.
And I work on all the external structures that you see on the bot right here.
I work on the PCBAs on the robots. We are designing high power inverters in a very small form factor.
As we iterate on our robot design and go into Gen 3 and into mass production, we are getting very close to the human functionality and form factor.
It won't even look like a robot. It'll look like a human in a superhero suit.
I think the end goal is going to be something revolutionary. It feels like the extreme sports of engineering.
So things are happening in the robot world, my friends, and there's not much we can do about it other than embrace it and figure out how we can harness it the best we can. But I'll say that one of the things that is very telling is that our politicians and our educators are dealing with this kind of stuff, and we wonder why we're going to need to put controls on the education system and the government system.
Menstrual hygiene products means appropriately sized tampons. What are appropriately sized tampons? I've never heard of such a thing. What do you consider appropriate?
They're talking about men's restroom tampons. Men's restroom tampons.
It just means that tampons are offered. There's no specific size.
Well, apparently there's 4 different sizes. So which one would you like them to use?
Just a regular size tampon in the bathroom.
Okay, maybe it should say that and not appropriately sized tampon. Now, is this going in all bathrooms, men's
Yes.
and women's?
Yes.
How about the Ravens Stadium?
If it is a state-owned building, then yes, it would go in. It's a public building.
Oriole Park?
Well, if it applies to the Raven Stadium, it would also apply to Orioles Park.
I guess Pimlico.
Wow. I mean, we're actually having these conversations. And to me, I embrace such conversations because, excuse me, it exposes the absurdity of the conversations that we're actually having. Okay. and we have to really, get it, clamp down on this. I'm going to show you a video. I'm going to jump to here to what's going down. Now, I've showed you today's Delta about FISA, about Trump's comments and how he led us to that post regarding Obama over the past several days. I want to remind you that this is what I believe President Trump was talking about with the snake song that he was reading as a poem, and how I believe he was pointing to Valerie Jarrett because her father-in-law was partners with Oscar Brown Jr., who wrote the music and the lyrics to The Snake. Valerie Jarrett is Obama's right hand, the head of the Obama Foundation and the head of the Obama Library. And it's, I am an Iranian by birth and my Islamic faith. This is her speaking, or actually posting in her university yearbook in 1977. I am also an American citizen, and I seek to help change America to be a more Islamic country. My faith guides me, and I feel like it is going well in the transition of using freedom of religion in America against itself. Very telling, especially as we see the Islamification of our country happening right before our very eyes. And so, on the subject of that, I want to take you to what's coming up about Adam Schiff. Now, what's important to remember is, and this is from Joshua Hall, is that when Schiff is found guilty of treason, Obama will be found guilty of treason because Schiff was carrying out the orders of Obama to take down President Trump. Comey and Schiff indictments imminent in Russiagate federal conspiracy case. Firebrand DOJ lawyer Lindsay Halligan is reportedly bringing a seditious conspiracy and espionage case against former FBI Director James Comey and U.S. Senator Adam Schiff for their lead roles in the coup to overthrow President Trump in the aftermath of the 2016 election known as the Russia hoax. The DOJ and Halligan are said to be prepared for a long, drawn-out legal battle to hold the deep state accountable for their crimes, and keep the indictments coming until justice is finally served. If convicted, the disgraced former FBI director and senator are potentially facing much of the rest of their lives behind bars. God bless Lindsay Halligan. It's time to make traitors pay again. This is getting closer and closer to realization of justice in our world, and this is a very important time to really be paying attention to this. And I want to show you, let me see if I bookmarked this or if I already shared it. But this is a very, very damning and telling report that was done by Jesse Waters on Fox News. And let's play this for you here.
News alert, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing a bombshell report today that shows a conspiracy by a sitting president, Barack Obama, and his intel agencies to sabotage the president-elect, Donald Trump, brainwash the electorate, and undermine the legitimacy of an election.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't.
Gabbard got her hands on a House intel report that's been locked away in a CIA vault for almost a decade. Investigators spent over 2,000 hours looking into how the Russia hoax was born, interviewing 20 CIA and FBI officials. And it turns out that the Obama administration doctored the intelligence to make it look like Putin and Trump stole the election. A month after Trump beat Hillary, Barack Obama wasn't satisfied with his intelligence reporting and ordered his CIA director to create a new assessment of how Russia interfered with the election. This was a highly unusual move. John Brennan handpicked 5 CIA analysts to write the assessment, and they were siloed. None of them knew what the other was doing, and only one analyst was in charge of drafting this report. There was nothing routine about this, and it was a rush job to publish before Trump was sworn in. Nothing was coordinated with the other intelligence agencies either. Basically, this was home cooking for Barack Obama. There were 4 key elements from the assessment that were repeated over and over again and formed the basis of the Russia hoax and the Robert Mueller witch hunt. 1, that Vladimir Putin wanted Donald Trump to win. 2, Putin took action to help Trump win. 3, the Russians had blackmail on Trump. That was the Steele dossier. And 4, that the Russians tried colluding with the Trump campaign. None of any of this was ever true. There was no reliable intelligence to support any of these allegations. Senior CIA officials repeatedly refused to traffic in these allegations, but they were repeatedly overruled by CIA Director Brennan and FBI Director Comey, who insisted that they be pushed, even without verifiable evidence. The Obama administration cherry-picked the intelligence, lied about their sources, misquoted sources, didn't corroborate their claims, suppressed intelligence that ran counter to their narratives, and even used anonymous internet postings. Rank and file CIA admitted what they were doing violated their own tradecraft standards. There was a massive pressure campaign that came right from the top. CIA analysts say they received unusual directives from political appointees, the CIA director, and Obama himself. This is how the Russia hoax was born.
Donald Trump knows that the Russians helped him win in 2016.
Putin hated Secretary Clinton so much that the flip side of that coin was he had a clear preference for the person running against the person he hated so much.
It was Russia in a very systematic way tried to interfere in the election and to try to advance the prospects of Donald Trump being elected.
This was such a malicious disinformation campaign perpetrated on the American people that at one point, 60% of Democrats believed the Russians hacked our voting machines to help Trump win the White House. What this report actually shows is that the Russians just wanted to create chaos and undermine Americans' faith in democracy. Solid intelligence suggested that Vladimir Putin didn't care who won. He had no preference. But like most people, expected Hillary to win and had a little docket of compromising dirt on her, dirt that he never released. Now, if Putin wanted Trump to win, why didn't Putin drop the dirt?
There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump.
Now, if Clinton was on tranquilizers like the Russians believed, why didn't they leak it to help Trump win?
How credible was the information about Hillary Clinton's power?
All I have seen is what the Intelligence Committee have reported through their investigation. I think the underlying point there is that we understand from intelligence what Russia said that they had. And the important point here is that if they were trying to influence the election, as President Obama and James Clapper and John Brennan, everybody said they were doing in order to support Donald Trump's election, they would have released the most damning of that information.
Obama and his spy chiefs knew that Putin didn't prefer Trump over Hillary, but they cooked the intelligence to make it look like he did. Obama and his intel spies knew that Putin didn't collude with Trump and that he didn't even direct his people to help Trump win, but they put it out there anyway. In a sense, Barack Obama did exactly what Putin wanted, undermined Americans' faith in free and fair elections and caused chaos in our country. Barack Obama, the CIA, and the FBI were the ones doing what our enemy wanted.
Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former
The
President
evidence,
Obama?
correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Even 2 years later, after the election, Barack Obama was still pushing a hoax he knew wasn't true. And he knew it wasn't true because he helped manufacture it.
They're undermining our alliances, cozying up to Russia. What happened to the Republican Party? They're cozying up to the former head of the KGB. Actively blocking legislation that would defend our elections from Russian attack. What happened?
Now, I don't know if it's possible to indict a former president for actions he took while in office. I'm not a lawyer, proudly. But Brennan, Comey, and others may have severe liability. Trey Gowdy says we know for a fact that Brennan committed perjury when he lied to Congress.
Director Brennan, do you know who commissioned the Steele dossier?
I don't.
Do you know if the Bureau ever relied on the Steele dossier as part of any court filings, applications?
I have no awareness.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Why not?
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done. It was not.
Well, that's a lie. Whatever happens to these guys is not revenge. It's accountability. And it's time for people to pay the price.
So interesting. Now, Brennan, Catherine Herridge reports, Brennan's legal jeopardy. Justice Department request for classified records. And by the way, Catherine Herridge, if you remember, Q told us to follow the pen and posted many of Catherine Herridge's works. And she was fired by CBS. And also they tried to take her documents, all her documentation, all her research. So she has been cast aside by the mainstream media, continues to do great work. So please give Catherine Herridge a follow on X. She said, the Justice Department request for classified records related to former CIA Director Brennan is a very serious escalation, especially if the records show Brennan doubled down on his Steele dossier claims. Now, somebody said, why isn't Obama being arrested yet? Well, they're building a hell of a case, my friends. And they're not going in this direction so they can stop. They're going in this direction because this is the direction that's going to continue. Especially if the records show Brennan doubled down on his Steele dossier claims. Under oath, Brennan told Congress in 2017 that we just saw the Democrat-funded opposition research was not in any way used as a basis for the U.S. intelligence assessment about Russia's activities during the 2016 presidential election. But records released by Tulsi Gabbard show Brennan was warned not to include the Steele dossier by intelligence professionals, but Brennan insisted on including the dossier because he liked the narrative. Through his lawyer, Brennan has denied wrongdoing. Linked to full CIA documents in Brennan's 2017 testimony. But here's the note. Despite these objections, Brennan showed a preference for narrative consistency over analytical soundness when confronted with specific flaws in the dossier, which was funded by Hillary Clinton and the MI6 Christopher Steele was the one who put it together. By the two mission center leaders, one with extensive operational experience and the other with a strong analytic background. He appeared more swayed by the dossier's general conformity with existing theories than by legitimate tradecraft concerns. Brennan ultimately formalized his position in writing, stating that my bottom line is that I believe that the information warrants inclusion in the report. Ultimately, agency heads decided to include a 2-page summary of the dossier as an annex to the ICA with a disclaimer that the material was not used to reach the analytic conclusions. However, by placing a reference to the annex material in the main body of the ICA as a force supporting bullet for the judgment that Putin aspired to help Trump win, the ICA implicitly elevated unsubstantiated claims to the status of credible supporting evidence comprising the analytical integrity of the judgment. Okay, very, very interesting. Now, what is John Brennan doing? Well, this was just yesterday, I believe. Let me play this for you. This is MS Now, which, you know, MSNBC has changed its name to MS Now.
Like, they are an authoritarian regime who's known to lie, but like, I'm confused. What is going on? Help me. Calm me down.
Well, I tend to believe Iran more than I do Donald Trump,
crazy.
because he could not acknowledge the truth.
Wait a minute. I tend to believe Iran more than I believe Barack Obama. Now, he is a converted Muslim, and he speaks Arabic fluently.
And help me. Calm me down.
Well, I tend to believe Iran more than I do Donald Trump,
crazy.
because he could not acknowledge the truth, even when it is, you know, he's slapped in the face with it repeatedly.
Iran, like.
Wow. Okay, so we see where he is, and his attempts to discredit President Trump, but it is not going to work. Now, I've reposted Catherine Herridge's on my X account at Dave Snedeker, and you can also see it on snedheads.com when you go to Dave's X feed on. And so one of the reasons why I set this up the way it is because many of you haven't joined X and do not want to join X. But when you join Snedheads, you're getting my X feed in your inbox right here. This is the show, and it will populate some of the other things that I've posted, right? But this is Dave's X feed, but also the window to the world takes us to, all of these posts of people that I follow. And you can see, just all these posts for all's alerts. And this is very odd, by the way. This is the official White House account shared a mysterious video with its 4.1 million followers, captioned "Sound On," showing a close-up of a woman's shoes.
It's launching soon, right?
And that's it.
It's launching soon, right?
Now the question is,
It's launching soon, right?
very odd looking shoes, but is it related to the robot that we just saw? I don't know. But very curious indeed. But so John Brennan is in a lot of trouble, and just so you know, people are pulling up things about this Russia collusion, and they're going by the people underneath Obama, Okay. And they're going to be talking and they're going to be telling them who gave them the marching orders regarding this, right? So let me take you to, again, we were just shown the Optimus or these robots that may be teaching school. Well, this is what's happening in Germany.
Sind es Einzelfälle, aber offenbar so viele, dass die Hamburger
I thought it
Schulsenatoren
was subtitled, but
jetzt
basically
zusammen mit christlichen, jüdischen
they
und
are
muslimischen
talking about that they are considering stopping music classes, music studies in German schools because it is offensive to Muslims. So this is the Islamification of our world that is not consistent with our First Amendment right, our right to, for religious freedom, also a right to freedom of speech. It is oppressive, and it is causing quite a problem in the world. Now, I wanted to acknowledge, Robin, your comment earlier about did you think back in 2020 when we were having such long shows every night, trying to get through that stressful time, that you would ever be talking about the Islamification right before our eyes? Well, I didn't think that it would get to this point, but one of the things that we continually talked about that Trump would share with us, that Q would share with us, was that you can't tell people the truth, you must show them. And so enjoy the show 100 times, so that we kind of get this clue that we're in a show that is not going to be enjoyable, which is why Q had to say it 100 times, but that Q knew the ending, which is why Q said enjoy the show, in my opinion. So what we're seeing with, the 4-year pause of Biden and the whoever was wearing that mask of his, pretending to be him, changing the signature, Q telling us signatures matter. Then we find out about the auto pen and how often that was used. And we're seeing what I was showing last night on today's Delta, where Q showed us that, let me pull that up for you again, where Q was kind of showing us how President Trump is, kind of undoing the presidency of Obama. And he's got weed killer here, right? And he is, and the American flag is going over this portrait, this very odd portrait, by the way, of Obama. Okay. And I saw a feed today as well. And I was trying to find it for you, but we've talked about this so many times. I've told you this, that Obama, and I'm actually gonna find it. I'm gonna find it again, because I misplaced it. But what we're finding out is that we're finding out more about Obama, but we're also finding out more about how he was a false president to begin with, right? And here it is. This is John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. Post on X. Well. Was his name really Barack Hussein Obama, or was it John Paul Ludwig? Now, John Paul Ludwig, well, let me just read it. After digging through records and old documents, something strange surfaced: the Social Security number 042684425, the one linked to Barack Obama. Now, we know that he has this Social Security number, okay? And I mentioned this years ago. This Social Security number was originally assigned to a man named John Paul Ludwig, a French-born immigrant who came to the U.S. in 1924. He was reportedly given that Social Security number in March of 1977. Now, here's the kicker. Ludwig spent most of his adult life in Connecticut, which explains why his Social Security number begins with 042, a prefix reserved for Connecticut residents. Obama never lived or worked in Connecticut. So why would he have a Social Security number tied to that state? It gets even more curious. Ludwig reportedly passed away in Hawaii, where Obama's grandmother, Madeleine Payne Dunham, now this is a part I was unaware of, just happened to work in the probate office of the Honolulu courthouse with access to files of deceased individuals and their personal records, including unused Social Security numbers. The theory is that Ludwig's death was never properly reported to the Social Security Administration, likely because he never received benefits. That meant his number sat dormant and accessible. Some believe Dunham may have quietly found a number that belonged to someone long gone. Hold on one sec. Long gone, someone not receiving benefits, and handed it off to her grandson, whose citizenship status has long been questioned by skeptics due to connections to Kenya and Indonesia. His brother said he was born in Kenya. His grandmother said he was born in Kenya. When you go to Kenya, they have a sign, birthplace of Barack Hussein Obama. And then, if that wasn't the case, because the birth certificate, of course, is fake, he also went to school in Indonesia at a school which did not allow dual citizenship. So he must have become a citizen of Indonesia. And if he had American citizenship at that time, he would have had to denounce that American citizenship and become a citizen of Indonesia. And that's just the beginning. If Trump, and by the way, there are no records of him reapplying for American citizenship. So there are two big strikes against this man, that he was either born in Kenya, and if he wasn't born in Kenya and was indeed born in Hawaii, as they claim, that he would have had to drop his American citizenship to go to that school in Indonesia as the stepson of Lolo Sotera, who was in business with the Bush family very significantly and on a very large scale. And so that's just the beginning. If Trump or anyone else ever pushes past the birth certificate and straight into the mystery of the Social Security number, it's going to be chaos. You'll see head spin on the left like never before, because you can debate birthplaces all day long, but using a Social Security number that wasn't assigned to you, that's fraud. This isn't about politics. This is about the law and the truth. Let people make their own decisions, but they deserve to know. So this is, gentlemen, he says the next drop will be huge. And I do not follow him, but I'm going to follow him to see what the next drop is. Let's see if he has indeed dropped something since then. No, he has not. This is the last post. Okay. So, yeah. And so this is very, very interesting. And again, I think all roads lead to Obama. And speaking of which, I want to share this with you, that this is a post by C3, which is another really good follow. A Tangled Web. Jack Smith's wife, Kathy Shavini, produced Becoming, the Michelle Obama documentary on Netflix. Katie's late mother, Belle Gail Shavigny, was a George Soros Senior Justice Fellow at the Open Society Foundation. So there it is. Dems to Obama to Soros always. Very, very intriguing, very interesting web that they have woven that is soon now unraveling, right? Liz Churchill even posted. Let's play this Newsmax clip. Oh, I turned the volume down on that last one. Let me bring that back up for you. Here we go.
It should shake every single American in their shoes. I hate to say this, but President Barack Obama, there is now incontrovertible evidence that he was the spearhead of a seditious conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people and overthrow the United States government back in 2016. We must, absolutely must, hold every one of these criminals accountable for the crimes that they committed. They are the most heinous crimes committed in American history. James Comey, John Brennan, Clapper, Rice, Biden was in the meeting in July 28th in the Oval Office. They briefed Barack Obama on Hillary Clinton's plan to, quote, tie Trump to Russia collusion lies. It consumed our national discourse for 5 years. It undermined a sitting duly elected president. It sabotaged administration. It framed a three-star general. It destroyed and ripped this country apart. We had a constitutional crisis, the likes of which I don't think any American can fully comprehend. It is atrocious, and every single one of them must be held accountable.
Yeah, and of course.
My friends, if you don't see like real arrests coming, I want to know, why you think so much of this is being revealed right now. Do you think that they're going to just go down a road where justice is not served? And I've said this many times, I don't see that happening because we're awake now. We are, more people are awake than ever before in human history. And as much as you see friends and family members that are still, buying into the mainstream narratives and the mainstream media, many of them are on the verge of breaking free from that narrative, and I think a lot of it's going to happen very, very quickly. Q has said this is going to be, clean and swift. And I want to point out a post by Santa Surfing today. Poppy Trumpo replied to this post, okay? And we know this is President Trump, okay? Cash's girlfriend alleges that Michael Flynn, Tucker Carlson, Kent, the senator who was basically resigned, and Candace Owens are all linked to a foreign influence operation. Anons knew, we're just the messenger of information. And this breaking report from Leading Report, FBI Director Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, alleges that Michael Flynn, Tucker Carlson, Joe Kent, and Candace Owens are all linked to a foreign influence operation. And Il Donaldo posted the 6 eyes. Okay. Look at this, look at this, look at this. Right. So very interesting that, that's coming to fruition. This was another robot thing I showed you. I was going to show you about other cows. Certainly jobs like this are taking over fine. They already are. Large scale yet. But massive that can be done very easily by robots that would take many times over a short period of time. So, certainly, again, it's not something that we can push back against. It's something that we have to move forward with and figure out how we can best use this. So this is all. I mean, this is hitting mainstream news. Okay. Let me see. This was on Fox News. Let me play this. Devin Nunes with Maria Bartiromo. This was, I forget when this day was. Hold on. Let me make sure I got you with me here. Okay, here we go. Sound is down again.
I'm going to try to get out as much of this information and get it declassified as possible.
So you believe that they raided Mar-a-Lago because they were looking for this? They were looking for the intelligence community assessment, your report on Russia's influence campaign targeting the 2016 presidential election. That's why they raided Mar-a-Lago?
I believe it had to be one of the things that they were looking for. Because look, that report is pretty damning. If people take the time to read it, it's 45 pages. It spent, we had a dedicated team that spent nearly 2 years down at the CIA looking through this. It was blocked from getting out. And the reason that report is so important, right? That's, let's just dumb it down. Simply put, we went through every single piece of intelligence that existed. And if anything, it was clear that if Putin was going to do anything, he probably wanted Hillary Clinton to win. But in fact, if you just apply a little common sense to it, the fact was that nobody around the world thought that President Trump was going to win in 2016. Same with Vladimir Putin. He didn't either. And so when you go through that, that was the intelligence. Every piece of intelligence that existed we went through it. It's in that report. And so, and what do we know? What do we, after all this, after all, Trump and Russia and collusion, the two people that didn't collude, Trump and Russia.
Yeah. All right. Now, remember, President Trump has has said this many times, that what Barack Obama did was absolutely treasonous and the biggest scandal in the history of our country. Remember when forgetting his name, Admiral Rogers came to Trump Tower and said to President Trump that that Obama is spying on you, because Admiral Rogers was the head of the NSA. And Trump moved his operation, and this is during the campaign for the 2016 presidential election against Hillary Clinton. So they were already trying to stop him before even the election in November. This was in the summer of 2016. And he moved his operation, which was his election, campaign office, from Trump Tower to Bedminster, his golf course out in New Jersey. And he tweeted about, Obama is spying on me. And boy, did the left have a field day with that. Wow, Trump is so paranoid, and he's this and that, and what a moron. And, this is back in the Covfefe days when they were making fun of his post about Covfefe. And we still haven't gotten any answers on the cash that he sent to Iran. Now, this is obviously AI. This is for all my terrorist homies in Iran. I love you, Big Mike. I didn't need to tell you this was AI, but this is what happened. He sent all this money to Iran. People think that we're in Iran because of, we're doing Israel's bidding. No. What's going to come out of Iran is the certainly and by the way, when President Trump did that that made that comment about Iran, and that they're giving us this a real big gift, and that shows him that they are all about this, trying to make this work. Oh, I got to show you that too. Okay. I got some good stuff to share with you tonight, my friends. I'm very, very excited about what's being exposed here, and I have to show you. Which one do? Okay, so this is President Trump making that comment about Iran. Let me bring that up for you. When he made that comment, I thought there was a video here. There's no video here, but let me bring this up for you. But the what he said was, this is from The Last Refuge. I think it's possible the interim Iranian leadership sent the White House Trump the routing numbers and transfer information for payments to the Obama team. Something of great value. He said that Iran gave us something of great value. Now, he said it had to do with oil. But I think because he was vague about it, that it very well could be the payments from Obama and the money that went back to Obama and went back to. Now, we just saw the Q drop. We were just taken to the Q drops about Barack Hussein Obama, and how, and by the way, if we're looking at today's deltas, we have the Trump-Russia collusion story did affect an American election, the one Dems won in 2018. My latest column, this was John Solomon, that was reposted by Q on March 25th, 2019. And now we know for sure that Special Counsel Robert Mueller, the U.S. intelligence community, Republicans on the House and Senate Intelligence Committees found no evidence that President Trump conspired with Russia to hijack the 2016 election. It is worth stepping back and evaluating the electoral impact of one of the greatest faux scandals in history. This is from John Solomon's article. Now, what's very interesting about this is what I showed you last night, which you saw President Trump posting on Truth about that he's glad Robert Mueller has died and that he ruined a lot of people's lives. And when President Trump says something like that, that is so, how should we say, unpresidential and so like viscerally, like you don't say that about somebody who died, then people start looking, well, why did he say that? Why did Trump say something so severe? And people start looking into Robert Mueller more. And I showed you some posts on X that show the damage that Robert Mueller did. So before doing that, though, let's summarize what we know about the origins of the investigation. Hillary Clinton and the Democrat National Committee asked their law firm Perkins Coie. Now, remember, President Trump took away any business that Perkins Coie was doing with the U.S. government to hire the political opposition research firm Fusion GPS to dig up dirt during the 2016 election on Trump and Russia. Fusion, in turn, hired former British intelligence operative Christopher Steele, who turned to a retired Russian intelligence officer in the U.S. to get most of his dirt. Steele took his information to the FBI and senior Justice Department official Bruce Orr to interject it into the law enforcement circles and make it a criminal matter. According to Orr, Steele was desperate to defeat Trump and viewed his dossier as a raw intelligence that was not verified. To augment that research, the Clinton campaign had a Democratic operative working with Ukraine's embassy in Washington to research Trump's Russia ties, as well as Ukrainian lawmaker feeding information to Fusion GPS. This is where Ukraine comes in. And this is why the Democrats and many of the rhinos continued to send money to Ukraine, not just because it was a money laundering operation that was seeing funds coming back into their coffers from Ukraine and from FTX, the big crypto scandal. But this is also why the war has not ended between Russia and Ukraine. Trump says it like, oh, these guys hate each other. But the bottom line is that Ukraine is still trying to enter NATO. And that violates the Minsk Agreement of 2014, when much of this was set up, much of this money laundering and child trafficking operation that was set up in Ukraine, including, by the way, something that we showed and broke on this show back in 2022, I believe it was March 1st show, when we showed you in the Wayback Machine that remember when I was watching the bombing of Ukraine, and I said to you it didn't make any sense that they were bombing all these different cities, because it wasn't like a front. It wasn't like putting all their power at the front to move into Ukraine further and further. So we followed some of those cities and found out that there were 11 bioweapons labs that were funded by our Department of Defense, meaning our tax dollars, in Ukraine. So even a bigger issue than the NATO infiltration into Ukraine, which is right on Russia's border and has many Russian-speaking people, and especially in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions of Ukraine, that were also getting bombed by Kiev. And so this is a major thing. So the reason why this war has not ended between Ukraine and Russia, in my opinion, based on the research that I've found, is that we have to uncover the corruption in Ukraine, not just the corruption of our money that was sent to Ukraine, but also in the misuse of those funds, by the way, the misuse of those funds. But also, and that is why Trump stopped all funding of Ukraine and said, if you want to, buy weapons, we'll allow NATO to sell you weapons that were made by U.S., arms manufacturers. So back to the Steele dossier. So, it implicates Ukraine. In other words, and of course, again, this is John Solomon's report on this. In other words, the main evidence used by the FBI to justify a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrant to spy on the Trump campaign in its final weeks before the 2016 election. This is now proven, okay? This is no longer speculation, but you won't hear it from the mainstream Mockingbird media. And for much of 2017 came from a political dirty trick operation paid by Trump's Democratic rival and run by a foreigner who disliked Trump. That operation gathered uncorroborated evidence from foreigners in Russia and Ukraine who had their own motives for influencing the election. Now, if the FBI probe ran with the secrecy of a normal counterintelligence operation, Americans never would have heard all of this, especially when the core allegations in the Steele dossier turned out to be bogus. But the FBI Fusion GPA's GPS's Glenn Simpson's Steele, U.S. intelligence officials and lawmakers briefed in Congress all leaked various details to the news media, creating a furor unseen since Watergate. The only difference is Watergate involved proven crimes by a president, and the Russian collusion narrative ultimately did not. So very interesting timing on Mueller's death and the 7-year delta of Mueller on his the day of his death. So Simpson acknowledged in a conversation with Orr that his and Steele's last-minute contacts with the reporters during the 2016 election were a Hail Mary attempt to influence voters. So, you know, he's talked with lawmakers, Russia hacked Democrat emails and brought some Facebook ads to influence the election, but such activity was not coordinated with the Trump campaign. That was proven. Yet, key lawmakers such as Adam Schiff and Senator Mark Warner continued to insist there was evidence of collusion, circumstantial or otherwise. They were talking to the same FBI and intelligence agencies as Mueller and I did, and that means that what they said in public was not consistent with what they were told in private. I'll say that again. What they were saying to the public that was eaten up by the Democrats, Schiff and Warner, was that President Trump was colluding with Russia. This is absolutely false. And the same people they were talking to were telling John Solomon, yes, this was false. But Schiff, Warner, and others found a receptive audience in the news media where misinformed or inexperienced reporters delivered a 24/7 barrage of stories intended to corroborate a collusion plot that did not exist. CNN, for example, reported there was evidence a Russian bank server secretly transmitted instructions to the Trump Tower. The FBI said it did not. New York Times reported senior Trump campaign officials met with senior intelligence, Russian intelligence, to corroborate during the election. The FBI, Congress, U.S. intelligence, and Mueller found no such meeting happened, and former FBI Director Comey publicly debunked the newspaper report. Carl Bernstein, the reporter of Watergate fame, declared another Nixonian-sized scandal was brewing and that Mueller's report would prove how Trump helped Russia destabilize the U.S. The report did not. Bernstein is deep state as well. Former CIA Director Brennan boldly predicted, and CIA, by the way, Brennan boldly predicted on MSNBC that Mueller had secured numerous sealed indictments. He had not. In all, more than 530,000 stories were written between May 2017 and this month about a Trump-Russia investigation that ultimately found no collusion. 530,000 stories. Wow. The earned media impact of that negative coverage likely would have cost billions of dollars if a Democratic candidate had tried to buy such coverage. But the news media provided it free of charge, fanned by the commentary of lawmakers and intelligence officials such as Brennan and former National Intelligence Director James Clapper, whose public comments contrasted with the secret intelligence. As the impeached Trump machine raged with fuel provided by the Democrats and inerrant media, a funny thing happened. More than 36 Republican incumbents in Congress announced they were retiring in 2018. 36. Okay, which Q told us, look for the resignations, right? Leaving the GOP with a gaping hole in the House that Democrats exploited. Polls showed the impact of the Russian coverage on voters. About half of American voters declared they believed Trump or his aides had colluded with Russia, even though they hadn't. It is the most compelling proof in a long time that false information repeated long enough becomes truth for many people. And this is something that Joseph Goebbels said after reading the books of Edward Bernays, who was Sigmund Freud's nephew and created the PR world, if you will. It is the most compelling proof in a long time that although we are still coming to grips with the finality of the Mueller report, one thing has become increasingly clear. The Russia collusion narrative, fanned by foreigners, dirty tricksters, and a willing media, did in fact impact an American election. Not the one in 2016, but the midterm that came 2 years later. Okay. So very interesting. And this is today's Delta. Okay. You are the news now. Do you believe in coincidences? Q. When the constant barrage of fake news attacks fail, those who are the biggest threats, nothing to see here. Number 2. This is something that is very, very interesting. Okay. Blind justice under the law will return to our republic. There's a reason why a sword is held. That is, in my opinion, the military. That will bring back the balance of justice. Okay. So very, very interesting that all of this is coming to light in the news media, having Brennan on, the death of Robert Mueller, the Russia collusion, more and more whistleblowers coming forward and talking about this and saying that this is what went down. Very, very interesting timing on all of this, right? Also, what's also coming out is that the Jack Smith, who tried to take Trump out, that this is from Real Robert, Judges Beryl Howell and Boasberg, both Obama appointees, secretly conspired with Jack Smith. This is newly released documents revealed this, to bring charges against President Trump in an attempt to overthrow the U.S. government ahead of the 2024 presidential election. Jack Smith indicted Trump on 37 federal counts in Miami in June 2023 for lawfully storing presidential records at his Mar-a-Lago estate, which was protected by Secret Service agents. Trump was charged with 31 counts under the Espionage Act of willful retention of national defense information and 6 other process crimes stemming from his conversations with his lawyer. In other words, the Russia collusion conspiracy hoax never ended. This time around, they used the U.S. justice system to take down the U.S. government. Okay. This is all coming to light, my friends. This is all coming to light, and it's very, very interesting. Okay. Yeah, very, very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So let me take you to this. Okay. Let me shift gears here. I showed you the Pfizer vice president who spoke yesterday on the COVID hoax and the mRNA hoax and the dangers of the mRNA jab, right? Andrew Bridgen said that Pfizer's former chief toxicologist, Dr. Helmut Sturz, states in evidence to the German parliament that the COVID jab caused 200 deaths within weeks of rollout. Dr. Sturz estimates 60,000 Germans died from the Pfizer vaccine. He says it should never have been approved. Should never have been approved. Okay. So this is all coming out. And also, John Solomon reports that the Biden officials pushed the COVID booster harder after surveillance found stroke increase. This is Senator Johnson who said this. Okay. And then we see this, that this was Secretary Kennedy here speaking on the HHS and how the Biden administration ordered the HHS to ignore fraud.
I'm not a partisan person, but I one of the things that I found out from people in my agency was they were ordered by the Biden White House not to do program integrity. In other words, not to enforce against fraud. And they said they were told, we want to focus on only enrollment and getting more and more people into the system. I'm not a partisan person, but
So the focus wasn't integrity in the system. As a matter of fact, they were told not to look at fraud, but just to continue to bring in more people into this system. And now we're seeing all the fraud in the system that exists. So very, very interesting. Ezra Cohen Watnick shared this post today. And Ezra, I believe, is part of the Q team. And how interesting, President Trump doing the same exact posture as George Washington. Now, the significance of this, obviously, is post 14 in the Q drops. Let me bring that up for you right now. Is this here? Okay. Is the Washington crossing the Delaware on the Durham boat, and during the first American Revolution. And you and I know this, many people do not, but we are in the second American Revolution. SCIF, military intelligence, what is state secrets and how upheld in the Supreme Court, what must be completed to engage military over other three-letter agencies, because that's what we're up against. We're up against the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA. And that is what Trump is trying to get rid of by draining the swamp. What must occur to allow for civilian trials? Why is this relevant? What was Flynn's background? Why is this relevant? Why did Admiral Rogers, NSA, meet Trump privately without authorization? That was to tell him he was being spied on. So again, this takes us to the Russia collusion and the spying and the illegal FISA warrants that were received by the government in order to spy on candidate Trump when he was running for president of the United States. Does POTUS know where the bodies are buried? Does POTUS have the goods on most bad actors? Was Trump asked to run for president? This is when Q, as early as post 14, okay? And that takes us to October 31st, 2017. On the 14th post ever of, at the time, the anonymous account that we would later find out is Q, okay? That's how early Q told us that Trump was asked to run for president. Why? By who? The Q team. Was HRC next in line? Was the election supposed to be rigged? Did good people prevent the rigging? Why did POTUS form a panel to investigate? Has POTUS ever made a statement that did not become proven as true fact? He has not, my friends. If you think about all the posts that President Trump, all the things that he's said, he has not been found to be inaccurate. What is POTUS in control of? The military. He's the commander in chief. What is the one organization left that isn't corrupt? Why does the military play such a vital role? Why is POTUS surrounded by highly respected generals? Who guards former presidents? Why is that relevant? Who guards HRC? We believe that who guards HRC are the federal marshals who are, HRC has been in basically under control for a very, very long time. And that is why many of her posts or tweets send us timestamped into the Q drops that are very, very damning to her. Why is Antifa allowed to operate? Why hasn't the Muslim Brotherhood been classified as a terrorist organization? Now, this brings up Iran, okay? Valerie Jarrett, and what she said earlier in 1977 in her yearbook post about, you know, bringing the Islamification into America. How better to do this than to be the Obama's right hand? Literally, she moved in with the Obamas after the presidency in that mansion on Embassy Row. And what's important to understand here is that Valerie Jarrett came from her father-in-law was very heavily involved in Chicago politics with Oscar Brown Jr. in the 60s and 70s. And that's where Obama came up through as senator through Illinois, because they had control over the elections. So what's happening in Iran is not just going to expose Barack Obama and his collusion with others in the government and his direction of others in the government to take out President Trump, but that was also to bring in the Islamification of the United States by the Muslim Brotherhood, which he is tied to. He was a Muslim, plain and simple. Okay, Valerie Jarrett is a Muslim. John Brennan is a Muslim. Okay. What happens if Soros-funded operations get violent and engage in domestic terrorism? Well, we're seeing that. What happens if mayors, police commissioners, chiefs do not enforce the law? Well, we're seeing that. We have been seeing that. What authority does POTUS have specifically over the Marines? Why is this important? What is Mueller's background? Military? He was a Marine. Was Trump asked to run for president with assurances made to prevent tampering? Yes, he was, by the Q team. How is POTUS always 5 steps ahead? Who is helping POTUS? This was one of the biggest early posts online by the anonymous account that would later, you know, sign off, excuse me, sign off as Q. So this post that, you know, of President Trump by Ezra Cohen Watnick takes us to that post. Okay, this is the one I'm speaking of. Okay, very, very interested. Okay, shifting gears to social media. Eric Doherty breaking any. Well, let me play this for you here.
Jury awards $3 million in damages to Kaylee GM. Now, this was a single plaintiff case as opposed to the New Mexico one, which was sort of a more generalized case, which was $5,000 penalty per violation, adding up to $375 million. So this is a single award of damages. Meta apparently liable for 70% of the damages, which would leave 30% to YouTube. So a $3 million award for Kaylee GM. How does that strike you, Josh?
Well, as far as, writing checks for these two huge multi-billion-dollar companies, it's nothing, but it's huge as far as what it means for all of the other plaintiffs. This is now blood in the water. They now
jury awards $3 million in damages.
So they're actually finding that these corporations were knowingly making their products addictive to youth. Okay. Somebody posted earlier that France is considering no social media for children. And that's really a great thing to do, because the social media has been proven, okay, to stop us in our tracks and kind of take over our minds. All right. So let me shift to the TSA situation.
And the wait line looks like this. In the couple of hours that I've been here, I've seen ICE officers patrolling, and the line has looked the same since I got here. Completely empty. So if you see wait times go down while you're traveling, you may just want to thank an ICE officer. Earlier this morning, travelers may have experienced a little bit of a wait time, but since I've been here, the lines seem to be moving fairly smooth. And the wait line looks like this. In a couple of hours.
So I mentioned this to you after Trump posted about ICE coming to the airports on Sunday. Sunday night was still very rough with TSA, certainly in LaGuardia Airport. That was an hour before that collision of that plane with the fire truck. But what really happened was it kind of opened up an opportunity for Trump to send ICE into the airports. And when we went back through the airports on Monday evening, both in Denver and in Newark, there were no lines. There were no lines whatsoever. Let me play this for you. This is Tom Holman.
ICE can check identification before people enter the screening area, right? And we're trying to release TSA resources to get to positions that they really need expertise in, like the X-ray screening. So we're going to be a force multiplier. ICE can check identification before people enter this.
So this completely cleared up the TSA lines, whether it was because ICE was there helping TSA, or it was stopping illegal immigrants from traveling, or I think the biggest effect was because when I went through TSA on Monday night, they were fully staffed. Like there was no indication whatsoever of fewer TSA agents. So I think a lot of the agents that may have been taking time off because they were justified in doing so, and they probably figured that they would get paid anyway for that time, because that's been, pretty consistent. I think they all went back to work on Monday. They were all probably ordered back to work. And I think we're going to probably see that was indeed the case. So very, very interesting how President Trump solved that problem. Okay. So let me show you, let me share this. Let me show you this. So the SCIF reports, pull this up for you. So the Clintons had control of all the contracts in Haiti. If you wanted to get a piece of the $14 billion in relief funds that were sent to Haiti, you had to go through them. They also had control of their elections. And guess what company they used to perform successful elections, according to the unclassified email? Smartmatic. Bill Clinton also used a middleman to be involved in other countries' elections because he couldn't publicly be seen or known to be engaging in any elections out in the open. This is yet another connection and part of the history of the global election fraud cartel. And this is from Laura Graham to Cheryl Mills, Cheryl D., Warren Holtz, and John Louise Desai. FYI, I told Bob that BC cannot engage on this issue, Bill Clinton, hiring a contractor to help with elections, and that I would refer the email to you. I also suggested to Bob that James Lee talk to you about anything to do with the elections because BC cannot engage. From Bob Nash back to Laura Graham. Laura, just a heads up that James Lee Witt has spoken to President Clinton about a company we are working with that does successful elections in underdeveloped and developing countries. The name is Smartmatic. They just completed a successful election in the Philippines. I will send you an article on this. When they say successful election, that means successful controlled election. They also have extensive experience. Now, how do I know this? Because that's why they're using this technology, is to control elections. They also have extensive experience in many places. I will send you their record. They are one of the top 3 most successful companies in the world in this kind of work. This kind of work meaning the overthrow of elections. I will send you some info on them. James Lee will ask if the president has time to meet with them and hear their thought on the Haiti elections. That was Bob Nash, senior advisor of James Lee Witt, part of Global Operations Group. So yeah, so that's at the skiff, right? Yeah, folks, this is all the frequency of these kind of things are more and more just coming at us, that we're able to talk about this, and people that are withholding this information will be exposed. Mark my words. Let me play this for you. Speaking of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islam,
girls can marry at 12 years.
So check this out.
About Lady Aisha, God be pleased with her, our mother, the mother of believers. No, Lady Aisha, God be pleased with her. Yeah, she was young. Now, what's the age of marriage in the US? Every state has a different age. There are some countries outside in the world, girls can marry at 12 years old. Okay, what's the issue of this? If in Africa, girls reach maturity much younger, even here in the US, I know we have some students from our families, from our acquaintances, the girls grade 5 and they reach maturity, they reach puberty. Very briefly, the worst enemies of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in his own time, did not object on this and did not say to him, oh, look, he's marrying a young lady. And in Islam, it's understood it by consensus. You can marry a child, yeah, but you can never have the relationship with her until he's psychologically, physically able. If a father is loving and wanting to marry and give his daughter in marriage to someone who is righteous, well, if the Prophet is here, everyone would love to do that and give his daughter to the Prophet, peace be upon him. So there is nothing wrong with that. That's their culture. You cannot measure your culture to their culture. In the US, go to the history, you will find the age of marriage sometimes was 9 years old, and everyone can search now on the internet. It can be 9 years old, 8 years old. It doesn't matter if in that community it's okay, and there's no physical harm, there's no harm, psychological harm, and there's no problem, and it is by consent of all parties. What's the issue with that?
Wow. Well, no psychological harm, no physical harm. Then why marry a 9-year-old, 8-year-old girl? Why would you marry somebody of that age and they call them young ladies? No, this is absolutely atrocious. They are not ready.
About
and that man was an Islamic scholar at North Carolina State University. If a loving father wants to marry off his 9-year-old daughter to a righteous man and all parties consent, what is the issue with that? Wow. And then, of course, we have, and this is from Silver Girl, by the way. Thank you, Silver Girl, for some of these great posts that you're tagging me on and notifying me on. And listen to this guy. This is Senate Majority Leader in Washington State, I believe.
If they're old enough to get pregnant, they're old enough to make their own decisions. If they're
the audio is very low here, so maybe turn up your volume so that you can hear this properly. I'll do the same.
If they're old enough to get pregnant, they're old enough to make their own decisions about what happens with their bodies, okay? And parents do not have the right to change that. If they're old enough to get pregnant, they're old enough to make their own decisions.
If they're old enough to get pregnant, they're old enough to make decisions about their bodies. Okay. I mean, this is absolutely taking away parental rights and imposing really archaic viewpoints about the age in which people should be considered an adult. And it's this is against all common sense, right? Let me play this for you from Captain Kyle.
For everyone, you may see or hear some alerts next week, but there will be no need to panic. The Texas Division of Emergency Management is planning a statewide test of the emergency alert system on April 2nd. It will happen sometime between 10 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. That means you might get alerts on your phone or email. You may even hear outdoor sirens going off. Now, this test will include local agencies, schools, universities, and law enforcement across the state of Texas. They will be testing several systems, so you may get more than one alert, but you can relax. Again, it's just a test. Emergency management officials say the goal is simple: to make sure these warning systems are working when they are really needed. For everyone, you may see or hear some alerts next week.
So this is in Texas, and it's going to happen April 2nd.
Second is a liberating day for our country. We're going to be getting back some of the wealth that very, very foolish presidents gave away because they had no clue what they were doing. And April 2nd, I would have made it April 1st, but you know what April 1st is? April Fool's Day. I figured, I don't like doing it, but I made it April 2nd. It's a liberation day for our country because we're going to be getting back a lot of the wealth that we so foolishly gave up to other countries, including friend and foe. Yes.
So President Trump saying that April 2nd is a liberating day for our country. So, it could be something or it could be nothing. I'm reposting that on my timeline that you can see on X and also on Snedheads. Okay. Okay. Oh, by the way, this was along the collusion with big tech. This story from Eric Schmidt. We just won Missouri versus Biden. As Missouri's attorney general, I sued the Biden regime for brazenly colluding with big tech to silence Missouri families like they silenced yours truly. Censoring the truth about COVID, the Hunter Biden laptop, the open border, and the 2020 election. They tried to turn Facebook, X, YouTube, and the rest into their private speech police, labeling dissent misinformation. Now that's a Twitter when it was Twitter. While they pushed their narrative on the American people. Today, after years of unrelenting litigation, we deep state into a historic 10-year court enforceable consent decree. We sent deep state. It directly binds the Surgeon General, the CDC, and CISA. No more threats of legal, regulatory, or economic punishment. No more coercion. No more unilateral direction or veto of platform decisions to remove, suppress, deplatform, or algorithmically bury protected speech. Missouri struck first, and Missouri won big. This is the first real operational restraint on the federal censorship machine. It locks in the First Amendment principle we fought for. Modern technology doesn't erase your rights, and government labels don't strip speech of protection. The deep state just got checked. For every working Missouri family tired of being silenced by their own government, this victory is yours. The Heartland fought back, and the Heartland delivered. Missouri, the show me state, and Eric Schmidt, United States Senator for Missouri. Beautiful, beautiful. We're winning, my friends, because things like that are taking place. And it couldn't, be at a better time or at a just a more historic time than this. Very, very interesting developments with that. Speaking of North Carolina state, which that Islamist scholar was speaking of, Just on a basketball note, Michael Jordan's jet landed his $70 million Gulfstream G650 ER private jet is touchdown in Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill is home of University of North Carolina, and they fired their basketball coach. Jordan is rumored to meet with UNC AD Bubba Cunningham at 2 p.m. to discuss potentially becoming the next men's basketball coach. That would be pretty amazing because Michael Jordan spent his undergraduate years at University of North Carolina, and very interesting development. So let's see. This is Israel and the assassination of the Kennedy brothers. Okay. Drogo, who I recommend following, we follow each other, it said this should be required viewing in history class. Now, I'm going to repost this on my timeline, but it's an hour and 26 minutes long. So please check this out in the connection to Israel of this very, very important topic that, much of it was released by President Trump to, and so this is from Amuse. And this has to do with election integrity. MIT data shows Democrat mail-in voting dropped 23 points from 2020 to 2024, with 0 drop in Democrat in-person voting. Republican voting was relatively static. The 23-point surge in Democrat mail-in ballots in 2020 has no explanation. Did these voters ever exist? This is how many million votes Obama got. 69 million the first time around, 65 million. Then Hillary got 65 million, and then Obama got 81 million, and then Kamala got 68 million, one less than Obama. This is, again, showing the failure of election integrity, and very, very telling about how this all went down. And we're not going to rest until this is, brought out in the open. And this goes back to Trump posted about Michael Byrd, who is the one who shot Ashley Babbitt. And so that's back in the news as well. Okay. Very interesting. This Erica Kirk stuff that's coming out about her CIA video that she did for the CIA when she was a young girl. Turning Point USA is warning Americans against conducting independent investigations into Charlie Kirk's murder, calling it too dangerous. Really? Okay. What's dangerous about finding the truth? Well, it's only dangerous for those who are going to be exposed by that truth, right? This is, I just showed you that video last night of me at the 9/11 memorial. This happened shortly after I was there. According to reports, the New York Fire Department headquarters has been defiled. Dozens of Muslim prayer rugs were laid right in front of the 9/11 memorial plaque honoring 343 firefighters who were murdered by Islamists. Now, if you're awake, there's more to look at when it comes to Israel. But as Q said, we're saving Israel for last. But the narrative is still that it was Islamic fundamentalists that caused that problem. So even though that narrative exists in the public purview, this is unacceptable. Right now, it's unclear who is behind this. Repost until we help identify the people responsible. Right? So I'm going to repost that. Now, I have no problem with Muslim prayer rugs. I have no problem with whatever religion you are to pray in private or in a gathering of other Muslims. But to do it out in the open and to push this religion on others, and especially in such a memorial as this, is just unconscionable to me and is not acceptable in the world. Dana Loesch did a post about Elizabeth Warren. Warren didn't say that she had Native American heritage. She filled out her 1986 Texas bar registration card by handwriting American Indian. Here it is right here down at the bottom, and she signed it. Race, American Indian. She had, and she claimed she was Cherokee, a member of the Cherokee Nation. She had Fordham Law Review verbatim list her as Harvard Law School's first woman of color. She plagiarized various French recipes and claimed they were her Cherokee family's historic foods. Crab dip with mayo, ? In her powwow chow cookbook. So your progressive racist mindset doesn't get to disqualify the actual American Indian because his skin displeases you. MAGA called Senator Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas after she said she had Native American heritage. Mark Wayne Mullen says he's a Cherokee, this pasty white wannabe cowboy. So readers added context. Mark Wayne Mullen is an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation. Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. congratulated Mullen on his nomination. And then in 2018, Cherokee National Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. said Senator Warren's claims undermine tribal interests. Okay, so this is a lefty trying to discredit Mark Wayne Mullen and at his confirmation, and yet it is true. But it is not when it comes to Elizabeth Warren. So very, very interesting that, that these kind of attacks are being completely discredited, right? And this is Senator Ron Johnson. This has to do more with the COVID. Senator Ron Johnson, I just released nearly 2,000 pages of the HHS reports showing the Biden administration's failure to immediately warn the public about a serious safety concern linked to the Pfizer COVID-19 booster that they discovered as early as 2022. Below is a clip from a January communication plan of 2023 with edits from Biden officials downplaying the significance of the ischemic stroke safety signal. So they changed moderately to slightly elevated but stable persistent, the rate ratio seen so far, and they changed moderately to slightly in each one of these. And this was something that was has been brought to light, and we will see more about this. Let me pull this up for you. In the registered voting, also in Los Angeles, James O'Keefe doing some great work on the streets of. I'm going to show you the short clip of this and then repost this.
So do you want to sign? Okay. The first name.
I'm Joseph Albright. Okay.
The first name.
Joseph Albright.
Fraudulent petitioners on Skid Row are now paying the homeless to forge names, forge addresses, and forge signatures of registered voters.
What are you using?
Teresa.
Teresa.
No, I'm going to give you an address to write.
Oh, okay.
Follow directions?
Okay, yeah.
quickly becoming a widespread scheme that can be found on almost every street corner in downtown Los Angeles.
So you're going to go do this, they're going to give you another $3. Then you're going to do somebody else, they're going to give you another $3.
So you guys are all working together.
You scared me.
We find thousands of names and addresses of registered voters being handed out to the homeless on scraps of paper.
Oh, cool. They pay you? How much? Oh, what name you have there? Oh, it's Vicky Walker. You're Vicky, huh? He gave me the name. Oh, cool.
We track down the disenfranchised voters at their homes to get the reaction to their signature being forged. They're giving names of currently registered voters, and one of them is a Vicky Walker. I assume that's his address?
Still get her ballot, but
You still get her ballot?
yeah, doesn't live here. I bought this house nearly 9 years ago.
Okay.
That's why I always feel really weird when I get the voting ballot. It's like, obviously that's fraudulent.
Definitely want to stay informed. We definitely want to follow through on this and see where they're getting this information, how they're getting this information.
Yeah. I just hope we get a stop to this soon. I mean, I didn't know that they were using my name and address for what's political fraud. That's what it is, right? Yeah. Just hopefully the governor and the district attorney or whatever just put a stop to this. Yeah.
Yeah, this. I watched the whole thing today, and this is very, very interesting, to say the least. And this is how they have, controlled these elections for quite some time. It's very, very damning. But back to the COVID situation, let me play this brief for you.
In an interview that you gave as part of an audiobook written by Michael Spector, that you believed an institutional should make it hard for people to live their lives so they'd feel pressured to get vaccinated. Could we run the audio clip on that, please?
You think can be done about it? I have to say that I don't see a big solution other than some sort of mandatory vaccination. I know federal officials don't like to use that term.
Once people feel empowered and protected legally, you are going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit and they get vaccinated.
Thank you. Are all objections to COVID vaccinations ideological bullshit, Dr. Fauci?
No, they're not, and that's not what I was referring to.
Well, in reference to making it hard for people to get education, traveling, working, I'd say it very much was in context. And I take great offense to this. Miss Allison Williams testified before this committee about losing her job because she sought an exemption for ESPN's vaccine mandate, which came from recommendations from bureaucrats like yourself. She and her husband were actively working with a fertility expert, a physician, on how to get pregnant, and agreed with the premise that she was young, healthy, wanted to get pregnant, and shouldn't get the vaccination for medical purposes. But she was fired because you made it hard, just like you said in your statement, because you didn't want to make sure that the ideological bullshit got in the way of her working, of living her life, of making a medical decision with her healthcare professional. I think America should take great offense to this. That's exactly what you meant when you said making it hard for people to live without getting a vaccination. You affected people's ability to work, travel, be educated, to actually flourish in American society, to self-determine, as we're all given God-given rights. Shame on you. Dr. Fauci, you've become Dr. Fear. Americans do not hate science. I don't hate science. The American people hate having their freedoms taken from them. You inspired and created fear through mass mandates, school closures, vaccine mandates that have destroyed the American people's trust in our public health institutions. This fear you created will continue to have ripple effects over generations to come. You have already seen its effects in education, in the economy, and everything else. Quite frankly, you said, if you disagree with me, you disagree with science. Dr. Fauci, I disagree with you because I disagree with fear. And with that, I yield.
It's all coming out, my friends. It's all coming out. Let me leave you with a beautiful, beautiful story about a baby who was blind, and her eyesight was restored the first time seeing her mother.
It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. Little stretch. There we go. Baby, can you see us? Oh my God, he sees you. He sees everyone.
You can see me. I've got you. That's wonderful.
It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. Little stretch. There we go. Baby, can you see us? Oh my God, he sees you. He sees everyone.
You can see me. I've got you.
Wow. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. We, humanity, my friends, are very, very, very powerful. And this is very, very much a testament to what the ability that we have. Neurolink is restoring speech to people who cannot speak. We're taking great steps in advancement in what we're capable of doing as humans, as humanity, and we have to just get out of the way the things that are impeding that progress, and the things that are weakening us as a society: the food, the water, the air, and it's all happening, and it's all coming to fruition. So thank you, everybody, for joining me, and thank you for those who are supporting the work that I do here. I'm glad to be back in the seat in the new Sned Shed, which is evolving as we speak. And I will see you tomorrow night, Thursday, March 26th. And please look for love and peace and beauty in this world, because despite all of the atrocities that we are seeing, we are absolutely killing it right now. And we are, I believe, going to be much, much better off when this is all said and done. And there you have it, my friends. That's tonight's show. Thank you for those of you who support my work. And thank you, Musically Medicated, for that, and all the beautiful comments in the chat. And thank you, Polar Bear Paws, Musically Medicated, Dina, all of you who are just doing fantastic, fantastic work, sharing my work, supporting my work. Thank you, Pete. And also, excuse me, I accidentally hit that. Thank you very much, Larkin Gale. We were not joined tonight by Moonbeam. She's under the weather, so prayers up for Moonbeam. And thank you, Quasi Pete, for holding down the fort tonight, as always. And much love to you all, and much, much peace and joy to you and yours. Good night, my friends.